Look at that. Ain't that pretty? That's our maple tree out here in the front yard. We got a couple of them, but this is the one that always turns really pretty. So I'd say that's a good indication that fall is here. And that got me thinking, well, what's after fall? Well, winter, of course. So continuing on with our how-to series, or tips and tricks, whatever you want to call it, let's look at, how do you prepare for seasonal changes in regards to a ranching operation, specifically a cattle ranch. So with winter coming on, usually winters here in Missouri are pretty easy, but depending on where in the world you are, winter usually means non-growing season for grass. So you are going to be feeding hay, maybe you're going to be feeding some grain, definitely going to be feeding some supplement of some kind, protein tubs, grain, or maybe you've got a TMR mixer, so you're going to be mixing some rations. You're going to be doing something, right? So in thinking about that, you really probably don't want your cattle in the back 40 or the back 100 or the back 80 or the back whatever you got, because you're going to have to drive something out to them to put out this hay. So one thing that we like to do as we prepare for winter, we're down to the last handful of calves that are starting to or last handful of calves that need to be calved out. Cows, good grief, it helps if I can talk. We are down to the last few cows that need to calve out. There we go. So most of the cows are paired up and everything like that. We'll move them to a pasture that's really close to the entrance to places. So like, for instance, our one big place that we have out here, it's off the highway. You go down a dirt road and then you go up this lane. Well, that lane goes through the entire property that's over there that we lease. What I like to do is bring the whole herd up to the very first field for a couple of reasons. We feed some grain in the winter because we have a feed box and it's already full. So if we're already going over there, it seems just as easy to feed some grain to them while we're there. In the past, I've fed a lot of tubs. We still feed some tubs. So having them close right there allows for a couple of things. If I'm going to go unroll some hay, it saves time. And when it's muddy, I'm now only rutting up the front field. So I like to start in the closer fields and then kind of move my way away as I need to. It's just easier. Like I said, it saves time. You're not going to rut up your fields the same way. And moving farther away allows for a couple of things. If it starts getting really muddy, I can always move back, right? If you start far away and you're needing to move them closer to you, if it gets really muddy, well, now you've got to drive the truck or ride a horse or ride the four-wheeler or walk or whatever you're doing out, and you got to push all of them cows and everything through the mud back into the front field. And so now everything's muddy, and it's just easier, the way I have found, to start close and move far away, and then if you need to, you can always move back. Because if you're in the second field and all of a sudden it's really muddy, well, I can go unroll some hay right here in this front field and keep tearing it up, and then just go open the gate and move the cows back into that first field. So that's one thing, is we like to move the cows to an easily accessible area in preparation for mud, or if it's snowy or whatever, just make it close. That way it's easy to get to. The other thing we like to do is, if you're unaware, it takes about 30 days to really see a body condition change in cattle. So when we're getting ready to start feeding hay, 30 months in advance to that, I really try to get the cows as fat as I possibly can. And sometimes that's not anywhere near where I want them to be, but that's the goal. Is we try to, the last 30 days before we're going to start feeding hay, try to get them as fat as we can. Make sure they're on the best grass that I can. Make sure they've got all their mineral they need. Make sure they are getting supplements and everything like that. Try to get them in the best body condition as I can before winter months, because it is easier to maintain body condition than it is to put it back on, especially in the wintertime. If they're raising a calf, like where we fall calf, if their body condition starts to drop, which it's going to because it's winter and they're feeding a calf, if it really drops off, you can't get it back. Whereas if they're in good body shape going into the wintertime, we can kind of maintain that and really watch them and keep them going at least. And yeah, they're going to drop a little bit, but they're not going to, I'd like them to be a 5 all winter long, So if I could get them to a 6, and when I say 5 or 6, I'm talking about body condition score. You can go look at a chart and see, go look up body condition scores of cattle. If I can get them to a 6 starting into the winter and they drop down to a 5, well, that's okay. Even if they drop down to a 4, it's okay. It's not ideal, but it is okay. You can kind of recoup that a little quicker. But if they're at a 4 or a 5 going into winter and they drop down below that, well, you're just screwed. That cow's not going to rebreed, and you're not going to regain it. It's going to take her a while to regain that body condition once springtime comes. Another thing that we have to prepare winter months, cold weather. We have a lot of water tanks, and so usually, like, it's still warm. Like, we've got some 60, 70 degree days coming up, so I'm not in a huge hurry yet, but I have started going around and making sure all my water tanks are working good, because what I will do when it starts getting cold is I will open those water tanks up a little bit to where they're, the water's circulating to keep the water tanks from freezing. These are all tire tanks on the lease ground, and here we have a bunch of ball tanks. Last year it got pretty cold and we didn't really have any problems with the tanks here freezing up on the home place. We did have one tank freeze up over here. It's an old, like, flip up lid style, and the tank itself didn't freeze. The pipe in the ground froze somewhere, which kind of surprised me, because they were drinking out of it enough. It should have kept it flowing, but nothing else froze over there, just that one line. So somewhere in there, that line is exposed to the elements more so than it is elsewhere, and that's why it froze. So there's not a cockpit that I can open on that tank, but there's just really not a lot I can do. I do have a heat lamp in there, and we can plug that in, and hopefully that'll help it. But the idea is to get your tanks ready for winter. If you get some cold weather, tanks freezing up can cause water lines to bust. Your animals can't drink. It's just a problem. So you got to get your tanks ready for winter. There again, that's just what the season I'm thinking about right now, because winter is coming. Just like the Starks say, winter is coming. They are always right at some point. If you don't catch that reference, it's from Game of Thrones. No big deal if you don't catch that. But yeah, winter's gonna be here before you know it. That's why we've been working on barn repairs and moving cows around, getting everything close. If you're gonna spring calf, that's another thing you can do. Like we talked about, moving cows close. Our first calf heifers are right here. That's the house. Our first calf heifers are right there in that pasture. So come February, when they get ready to start popping these calves out, they're gonna be right here. The barn is right over there. So if we got any issues, we can run these suckers right into the barn and give them shelter or give them assistance, whatever they need. So that's something else you can do if you spring calf anything, is put them close to where you're gonna be. Makes it easier. I gotta feed them hay anyways, so I might as well feed them hay right here. That's how I look at it. If you've got, and maybe you can't do that, and if you can't, well, I would just say get them to where it's as easily accessible as possible. If you're going to be calving out any sort of cattle in the winter months, I would have them close to a corral system. If you don't have a corral system, get some sort of catch pen rigged up and get your animals close to that. Maybe go get a portable system. I don't care. Do something, because you never know when you're going to have an issue. So that's just some of the things we do to prepare for winter around here. I'm sure there's tons of things that I'm not really thinking about, like winterizing the fuel, getting it ready, You know, we put lots of treatment in the fuel, make sure all the diesel tanks are treated and all the equipment and pickup trucks and everything like that. Get extension cords ready for block heaters, you know, all the little piddly stuff. But in regards to animals, I think that covers all the major things that we really try to do to get ready for winter. Of course, you need to make sure you have plenty of hay, get your hay stacks ready, get them, you know, get your equipment ready to get hay, all that kind of stuff. But like I said, that's just some of the things we do. If you have any specific questions, let us know in the comments. Thanks for sticking around to this point. If you didn't catch that radio interview we did yesterday, I think it was a great time. That will be broadcast again, and I will try to figure out when they're going to broadcast that again on the air. Like I said, you can go to their website, 98.1 The Hoss. They've got an app. They're on Roku channel. The farm show is not on video yet, but they are in progress of figuring out how to get that put up on video. So maybe we'll go back at some point and do a vodcast style, which would be cool. So thanks for sticking around. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, of course, let us know in the comments.